our ancient past may have come into contact with highly advanced technology and they didn't even try to hide it from us. Take a look at this. Why does almost every ancient civilization have these carvings of people holding handbags? Or at least something that looks like a handbag, but what are they? And this is definitely not some coincidence. I mean, these handbags are found everywhere. From the ancient Sumerians in Iraq to the Egyptians, Turkey, Italy, India, Indonesia, Mexico, South America, New Zealand, all over the world. One of the most common themes in ancient stone carvings, and we have little explanation for it. Some people say that it's a basket or a bucket of water. I mean, it could be, but like, why? And still others claiming that it's a symbol of life or passing down of knowledge to the next generation of humans. But even so, what are the chances that every single one of these cultures chose this handheld purse, a completely out of context object, as their symbol? Convergent evolution is a theory that humans tend to think and evolve in a similar manner, independent of each other, but using that as an explanation is a bit of a stretch. One thing we know for certain is this handbag was significant, as was anything that was carved into stone this often. Some of the crazier theories even say that this could have been the ancients' interpretation of some advanced technology, drawing similarities to the packs that astronauts carry, but given that's also quite a stretch. So is this symbolic of life and knowledge, or just an innocent bucket of water? The answer could be hidden deep in these following records, starting in Egypt with this hieroglyph uncovered in the Temple of Osiris. Just have a look at these and tell me if you see anything, cause I don't know, maybe I'm the one that's tripping here. But does this not look like a helicopter? Maybe a tank or a boat? An airplane? What looks to be a spaceship, all carved into stone thousands of years old? Now I already hear the Google debunkers crying this has been proven wrong, that these are just hieroglyphs that were written many times over, and these shapes are just a combination of many characters. Damn, didn't know they were there when these were carved, given how 100% certain they are of it. There's so many other questionable hieroglyphs in ancient Egypt, but I'm gonna have to save those for another video. Okay, if you try to sleep tonight, then you might want to scroll now, or at least save this video for later, because we about to see just how deep this rabbit hole goes. Let's take this all the way back to the caveman days with Paleolithic cave drawings and carvings, also known as petroglyphs. These ancient aboriginal cave paintings in Australia dating back to 15,500 BC, known as the Bradshaw paintings. Take a note of the big round heads here. China Lake Naval Air Weapons Center near Death Valley, California has petroglyphs dating 16,000 years. Again, tall beings with bubble-shaped heads and lines coming out. Oh, look at that. We see similar cave drawings in Ginkgo State Park near Vantage, Washington, all in the US of A. Tassili Najjar is a plateau in Algeria, Africa, with these rock paintings dating to about 10,000 BC, again with these strange bobblehead creatures, almost like they're wearing helmets. Some of them even appear to be wearing gloves and full-on suits. Now, before you say, oh, that's just how they drew humans back then, well, because right beside them we have these drawings of completely normal-looking beings, so what are these creatures? Other side of the world, in Toro Muerto, Peru, petroglyphs around 12,000 years old of beings with bubbles around their heads and lines coming out. Across the ocean to Asia, cave paintings in Chhattisgarh, India, dating about 8,000 BC, feature bubble heads with lines coming out. Over to Europe, the Valcamonica prehistoric rock art in Italy, over 5,000 years old, and you tell me what you see here. A human-looking creature holding strange tools, wearing a bubble helmet with lines coming out of it. Yeah, because prehistoric humans around the world just all decided to draw the same thing, right? Then we start to come out of the Neolithic era to the oldest known civilization, the Sumerians, whose tablets include this stone carving. We have no clue what this is, but it really do look like some flying object with some force field coming out from underneath. And this other tablet looks pretty innocent until you notice this. Doesn't that kind of look like a sun shape that just so happens to have 9 balls around it? Exactly the amount of planets in our solar system. Guess they counted Pluto, so did they have advanced knowledge of our planets over 4,000 years ago? Back to the Egyptians, we see this dude in some serpent-looking craft. Could be part of their mythology, but then we see the exact same thing in the Maori of New Zealand and the Aztec and Olmecs of Central America. And now the Mayans. Oh man, what on earth is this carving? Some complex-looking contraption complete with hand controls and something up his nose? Not to mention they seem to be wearing helmets again, which sure could be decorative, but what on earth are these contraptions they're in? Is this their way of interpreting spaceships? These Mayan discs, allegedly revealed by the Mexican government, are over 1,000 years old and hidden until 2012, and I mean, just look at what's going on here. Granted, there's a lot of controversy around these, and they do seem a little fishy, but physicist Nassim Haramein gave a full presentation about it, so I don't know, you be the judge. This 3,000-year-old spaceship carving found in modern-day Turkey, but of course debunkers will admit it's anything but that. A silver-suited figurine wearing a helmet and gloves found in a Ukrainian village dating back to 600 BC. Carvings of people wearing helmets and full-on suits and gloves at the Hoysalaswara temple in India, dating back to about 900 years old, if not more. Are those spacesuits? Note that these are different from these spacesuit statues in Spain, which were actually just part of a restoration project in 1992, so don't be fooled. Even as recent as the Renaissance, tell me, what on earth are these little creatures flying in spacecraft doing in a Jesus painting from 1350? Look closely and you'll find similar flying saucers in dozens of these works of art over hundreds of years old. And the angels you see in religious Renaissance paintings have been around a lot longer than you think. Predating even the Bible, depictions of winged beings were very popular among Egyptian hieroglyphs. And we see the same pattern in the carvings of the Sumerians, which are even older. Some of them even going a step further and showing these beings with the head of a bird. Now, why the obsession with birds? Let me finish you off with this thought. If some primitive civilization were to come into contact with something they can't explain with their current understanding of the world, don't you think they would describe that thing in terms they can understand? So if they were to witness some sort of being coming down from the sky, the only thing they know that are airborne are birds. So naturally they would associate that being with a bird. A far-fetched yet plausible explanation of the popularity behind bird-like gods among these ancient cultures, which leads us to their creation myths. And yo, listen, pretty much every single one of the world's ancient civilizations have the same story of how we came to be. Okay, I know this was a lot, but I just couldn't believe what I found out about these stories, so I have to say this for another video. Hey, I gotta tell you, I might not be around for very long, Jimmy boy. Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, and even China, Taiwan is starting to creep in. It scarily seems like the stage is set for the next great war. The main difference with this one being we got nukes. But some historic records tell us this isn't the first time we've had to take those measures, and we've had nuclear wars on Earth before, over 5,000 years ago. These ruins in Mohenjo-daro, Pakistan, which used to be India, were unearthed in the 1920s and left experts speechless. An almost perfect radius near the center of the site shows the ruins have been crystallized and turned into glass around an epicenter, indicating a massive blast occurred here. In order for sand to become glass, you need a lot of heat, much higher than what you can get through normal fires or conventional explosives. Could have been from a meteor, but that would leave fragments of iron and other minerals in the area, as well as a crater, none of which are to be found. Or maybe from a lightning strike, but then the glass would look like this. Yes, that's actually how lightning formed glass looks like. There could be other natural causes, but findings led experts to believe that what happened here wasn't natural. Just listen to this. Along with shards of glass, vitrified pottery, which basically just means clay that turned into glass, and even fused stone bricks were found scattered around the area, which would require even higher amounts of heat. We're talking 2200 to 3000 degrees Celsius. And according to the US government, the only things that can withstand that amount of heat are passports. On top of that, 44 human skeletons were found laying around, much further away from this ground zero, in similar positions as the Pompeii eruptions in ancient Rome, as if a massive force instantly overcame them. Upon testing the bones, it was found that the radiation levels were up to 50 times higher than what would have been natural here. What's also strange is that this ancient city is said to have been occupied by around 35,000 people. To have only 44 skeletons and none close to the center is an anomaly, and also exactly what you would expect if a populated city ever got hit with an N-bomb. Now all this is just mere speculation, but the real kicker here is that ancient Indian texts describe almost exactly what they found here. Ancient Hindu epics like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, written around 300 BC, recite tales of a great war that took place around 3000 BC in the Indus Valley region, the exact location of the Mohenjo-daro site, where it talks about energy weapons of the gods used during the war, some of which produced an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns, and crowds of warriors with steeds and elephants to be carried away as if they were dry leaves of trees, describing a godlike weapon, the Brahmastra, as a single projectile charged with all the power in the universe, which reduced to ashes an entire race. They even described the long-term effects of these weapons, saying hair and nails fell out, pottery broke without any apparent cause, and the birds turned white. Food was infected, land would become barren, and infertility in humans and animals would follow for eons of time. Reminder, this was written in 300 BC, recalling events that occurred around 3000 BC, almost perfectly describing a nuclear explosion and its effects. Just a coincidence, right? And I know, these ancient myths are commonly regarded as allegorical origin stories, and rightfully so, but what if they're actually historical accounts of real events? Ancient India is also ripe with out-of-place technologies that far outdate what was expected at the time, so maybe they, or someone else, blew them right back to the Stone Age. These ancient greenish glass chunks are also found in the dunes of Egypt, southern Iraq, predating even Neolithic cavemen, the deserts of Mongolia, the Silk Road in China, and even Israel, found in 1952, with a very similar atomic structure as the glass shards found around the Trinity test, the site of the first nuclear test ever, and even more radioactive substances indicative of nuclear blasts found as far as the surface of Mars. But that's another video for another time. Let me finish you off with a quote from Oppenheimer himself, the father of the atomic bomb. He was asked if Trinity was the first ever bomb of its type to be detonated. He responded with yes. in modern times. I dare you to try to explain the 100-ton granite boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara in Egypt. There's 24 of these massive granite enclosures, and you won't believe the official explanation for them. All 24 of them were moved into this underground complex dating to about 1400 BC, where they now sit. And the craftsmanship of these boxes is once again insane. Perfect right angles and parallel sides leveled with machine-like precision, you know the drill. Made of granite, which reminder is harder than steel, using bronze and stone tools that are softer than granite. Like, you know, using a plastic knife to cut through a car door. Try that out and let me know how it goes. But never mind that. I've already said it 100 times about all these other artifacts and ancient architecture throughout ancient Egypt, because these boxes, they're different. Let's start with the sheer size. About 100 tons each, and barely even fit through the hallways they would need to pass through to be placed in the pits that they currently sit in. As we can see from this unfinished box here that was abandoned in one of the passageways at the Serapeum. If you couldn't tell, they're also made from a single piece of granite each, so it's not like they took smaller pieces and just glued them together. One big ass brick of granite, hollowed out from the inside into a perfect box, absolutely zero room for any mistakes. And I find it extremely difficult to imagine how, once again, this sawing method could hollow out a granite box like this with flawless accuracy. Because 100 tons is a lot. The experts claim that we might be able to move 100-ton objects using primitive methods as long as we had enough people, which according to them is about 400. Tell me, how on earth would 400 people be able to coordinate moving 100-ton blocks in cramped hallways like these and around these super tight corners? For reference, this is what 400 people looks like, all stuffed in there. Not to mention, the boxes were perfectly placed in the center of rooms even smaller than the hallways. Where do we have room for 400 people there? And I don't know if you noticed, but these hallways and pits are currently lit up with modern lighting, which the ancient Egyptians obviously didn't have. This Serapeum would have been pitch black day and night 3,400 years ago, but of course they still had fire and torches that served this exact purpose, right? Except they found no evidence of soot, the leftover scorches from torch fire, anywhere on the walls or ceilings in this complex, as they would normally find in dark underground passageways. Any commonsensical person would imagine that a project like this would have taken thousands of hours of work in torch-lit chambers, yet not a shred of proof of that anywhere. So what did they use to see in the dark back then? And the entire Saqqara necropolis itself is dug into limestone bedrock. There's no granite found here, so they couldn't have chiseled these in place either, as some may suggest. What we do know is that these boxes were important, like super duper important. But for what? Clearly an undertaking of this scale would have surely held a higher purpose for their civilization. I mean, they definitely weren't tombs. They're obviously way too big, right? Nope, they still call them tombs. Made for, get this, the pharaoh's prized bulls. Yes, bull tombs. They said it, so it must be real. Now, upon discovery in 1850, most of these boxes were already open. Their lids either gone or moved over, so whatever was inside had likely already been stolen. You know, by those pesky thieves that conveniently steal everything that historians have no evidence of. But they found one box that was completely sealed, lid fully intact, so the bull skeleton must still be inside. A perfect opportunity to prove this theory. Well, firstly, they couldn't lift the lid, which is only about 30 tons, as they weren't able to get enough manpower in the room to even budge it. Yet the Egyptians somehow moved the entire 100-ton blocks themselves into those rooms thousands of years earlier. Makes sense. So they did the only logical thing that anyone from the 1800s would do in such a scenario. Blow it the f up with TNT. Yeah, for real. Archaeology was pretty savage back then, which finally revealed the truth that the boxes at the Serapeum of Saqqara were filled with nothing. Absolutely nothing. No mummy, no bull skeletons, no gold or treasure, nada. They did find mummified bull carcasses in a bunch of wooden sarcophagi, as would be expected, in an area called the Lesser Gallery, but not a single one found in any of the granite boxes. Cause yes, to be fair, the Apis bull was a highly revered deity worshipped by the ancient Egyptians, symbolizing fertility and agriculture and the physical embodiment of their god Ptah. Hope I pronounced that right. I just find it hard to believe that a project of this colossal magnitude, which would have taken years, if not decades to complete, was dedicated to stashing the bodies of dead animals. While at the same time, mummified bulls were found in much smaller, simpler wooden sarcophagi in the Lesser Gallery, which is oddly closed to the public and no images of those exist either. Allegedly proving that this is how they stored bull remains, not this. But then again, I'm just an idiot. Still others claim these boxes may have been power conductors that generated electricity for their civilization, part of the infamous Giza power plant theory, which is a fringe idea that may or may not be true, and I explained it in full in a previous video. So, are these really bull tombs, or just a steaming load of bullshit?